It's been a year since Jedi Fallen Order came out, finally breaking the EA curse that many Star Wars fans believed befell the franchise. The single-player games that were cancelled, and the Battlefront 2 campaign which was thoroughly criticized. The critics and fans praised Jedi Fallen Order for the combat, the visuals, the story, and were simply happy to finally get a dedicated single-player experience that wasn't shallow. Me? Well, I found the game to be sorta mixed. I liked the combat for the most part. The visual and set pieces were stunning, there were some nice surprises, and some high highs.
Guess we keep going.
But I also found the Metroidvania game structure to be confusing, if not a few times frustrating, as I got lost way too many times. Thus it affected the game's pacing for me, whereas I loved the linear set-piece moments. And the story didn't seem to land for me as much as I wanted. Overall, I ended up thinking the game was just good enough, but in a way, that was rather disappointing, probably because I wanted to be blown away like when I was a kid with Jedi Outcast. But fast forward a year later, and after revisiting the game recently, I wanted to do another video on this game. However, instead of doing a retrospective be-all end-all 1 year later video, covering all my praises and criticisms for the game's combat, story, difficulty, and more, I want to be laser focused on certain topics and issues. I probably won't be focusing that much on the gameplay side of things, so if you're looking for a gameplay oriented video, I highly recommend watching this 40-minute critique by White Light, who always puts out these great chronological look-throughs. With that all said, today I'm going to argue why I found the central conflict in Jedi Fallen Order to come off so meaningless and, at the end of the day, undermines the character's motivations. And that is the game's MacGuffin, or an object, person, event that drives the conflict. Or is supposed to. But before jumping directly into the main arguments, I think a recap of the story is in order. So, spoilers ahead. For all of the video, basically. We open up on a junk planet, where Cal is hiding from the Empire since he's a Jedi fugitive from the Clone Wars. During an accident, you use the Force to save a friend, but then that brings the attention of the Empire to you. Your friend is killed, you get chased, and then you're saved by some off-worlders, notably Seer.
My name is Seer Junda.
Notably Seer, a former Jedi Master, who wants you to join a quest to revive the Jedi Order. He sends you looking around for an artifact, which is a Jedi holocron that reveals where all the Force-sensitive younglings are. From there, you're sent to several different planets looking for the Jedi holocron. You occasionally bump heads into the Inquisitors, the Empire's answer to the Jedi, and the one at the beginning reveals herself to be a former apprentice to Seer. Trilla was captured after Seer, under torture, gave away Trilla's location, where she broke under pressure, and joined the dark side, while Seer resisted and escaped. Eventually, after an endless amount of detours and padding, Cal gets a holocron, but sees a dark vision into the future, where bringing all the younglings together causes the Empire to round them all up, and you all eventually take the black. But Trilla steals the holocron, and you head to the Inquisitor's training facility, where you defeat Trilla, escape Vader's wrath, and decide to destroy the holocron. So the Empire can't track down all the younglings. And that's the recap. Now originally, the recap was much longer, mainly because the game feels so bloated with distractions and padding. There is so much that happens in the game, but much of it arguably doesn't feel necessary. For example, you fight a giant bat, and the whole fight doesn't affect Cal or the story at all. Therefore, I couldn't list everything, but hopefully this is basic enough of a recap. But I'll explain the unmentioned plot beats more as I discuss the meat of the topic. So, let's get into why I think the story's MacGuffin is so underwhelming it hurts the narrative. Again, what is a MacGuffin? It's something the characters want, like an object mostly, that moves the plot along. Be it R2-D2's Death Star plans in Star Wars, or Frodo's ring in Lord of the Rings. Or if you're one of the Gen Zer types, the Infinity Stones in the Marvel flicks. We, the audience, usually don't care about the MacGuffin as much as we care about the character's journey, struggles, emotional growth, and experiences. It's often just secondary, but the MacGuffin itself can raise the stakes higher and make us care about the bigger picture. So, what plot device is used in Jedi Fallen Order? Does it raise the stakes? In a setting that takes place after the Jedi Order was wiped out and the Empire is at its zenith? It's a phone book for all the Force-sensitive younglings in the galaxy? No, really. It is just a holocron that tracks all the Force-sensitive kids across the galaxy. And sadly, no. I never felt like Jedi Fallen Order's MacGuffin elevated the conflict. In fact, it made me question the whole point of the journey overall. There's a lot of problems with this plot device. An easy one is that we collectively know that Cal and his friends are not going to restore the Jedi Order. The Jedi Order is long dead and it's only Luke, Obi-Wan, and Yoda who are left by the time of the original trilogy. Yes, I'm aware of Rebels, but, it's not exactly movie canon. So we know Cal is going to fail by the end of the game. That's not to say it's impossible to do stories about futility. People love Titanic. They're on the edge of their seats, hoping the ship doesn't crash, even though we all know it's inevitable. I also love war films where I know the main characters are not going to have a happy ending. That's because those films made the characters so compelling, we rooted or empathize with them to succeed, even though we know they can't change history, or that they even get a happy ending. At best, it'll be a bittersweet one. Basically, it's about the journey, not the destination for the most part. Alright, so let's then ask, how well does the MacGuffin tie in with the characters, namely Cal, our spunky, scrappy protagonist? Why does Cal decide to join Cere on her quest to rebuild the Jedi Order? The Jedi Order? A task so colossal, it will take a large amount of selflessness and sacrifice?
I believe I can't keep hiding from the Empire, so I don't really have a choice.
That's it? Cal just wants to do it because he guesses nothing else to do but fight back? No drive to avenge the Jedi Order, or his master, or even, Pralf, your friend who looked after you on a harsh planet and tried to keep your Jedi identity safe by giving himself to Inquisitors, dying in the process?
No!
Throughout the game, especially on the second run, I was always asking myself why Cal would risk all of this just to revive the Jedi Order. He didn't seem that fond of the idea of the Jedi Order being resurrected. He doesn't have dreams about those cheery faces at the temple, or even reminisce the good old days before the Empire.
Before the dark times. Before the Empire.
The only flashbacks he gets are him training with his master. And that's just so we can see him use Force powers. Now, Cal's decision to join up with Cere doesn't really seem to line up with a desire to restore the Order or help the other younglings. Then it is just Cal thinking he doesn't have a choice and might as well fight back? So we're not exactly on a good start without character, not really caring about the bigger picture. Oh, it's okay to have characters eventually come around to realizing what's at stake, and then fully committing to the bigger picture. But in Jedi Fallen Order, it takes 12 hours to get to that point, where the threats and stakes are visibly clear to us. But I'll get to that eventually. Cal reluctantly agrees to help Cere, and when he's told by Cordova's recordings that the holocron has access to all the Force-sensitive children, he never seems to relate it to his own childhood. It's revealed towards the end that Cal's childhood was stolen from him because of the Empire and Order 66. I just get the sense that instead of doing it to help the younglings, Cal is just doing it because it's the good thing to do? Like the bare minimum that we all expect the good guys to do? Even though we don't see Cal being all enthusiastic about it, or how it personally affects him. Anyway, as for the journey itself, we first go to Zepho, because Cordova said it's a homeworld of this ancient Force-sensitive alien species, also called the Zepho, which is totally not confusing at all. And after spending 2 to 3 hours there, you learn that the Zepho species had contact with the Wookiees because of some bark in the temple.
It can only be a Rosha tree from Kashyyyk. It's time to call on an old friend.
After that rather unrewarding reveal, you spend 4 to 5 hours on Kashyyyk, which, I'll admit, I forgot why I was even there. Because there's so many things happening that were so vaguely connected. Like Cal deciding to stop an Imperial assault on the partisans, then he frees some Wookiees, One of the freed Wookiees says he knows the chieftain, and he'll get you to him later. But then you're told to go back to Zepho, and there you discover that Cordova was looking for a key. A key that lets you find a Jedi holocron on Bogano. However, besides being ambushed and kidnapped by bounty hunters on this weird detour, you didn't get news from Kashyyyk that they found a Wookiee chieftain. So you head back to Kashyyyk to meet him, but we're not told in the holographic message what the chieftain knows. How convenient. So you're back on Kashyyyk again, head to the Shadowlands, meet the Wookiee chieftain, and what does he have to tell you?
Cordova found wisdom at the top of the origin tree. You should seek answers there.
It's massive.
Huh, that's it? After everything we've gone through to get to him, not even a thank you for freeing his people? Awesome. So you climb up the tree because the chieftain doesn't know anything specifically, only that Cordova got to the top of the tree. You get ambushed by one of the Inquisitors, and after flying around on a big bird, cutting the Ninth Sister's hand off, presumably killing her too, and you finally reach the top of the tree, where Cordova's massive discovery is that the next piece of the MacGuffin is located on Dathomir? Really? After all that, it's just a clue to get to the next part of the treasure hunt? Like, you don't even get any tangible object? You're just told you need to go to another planet to find the object? Replaying this in 2020, I had a realization that Kashyyyk, as a whole, it's arguably a disposable chunk of the game that doesn't really need to be here. Sure, there's some great set pieces like the AT-AT segment and the fight on top of the Tree of Life. The Origin Tree. Sorry, I mixed it up for the holiday special. But it all ends up feeling unfocused, and at the end, all we achieve in the story is that we learn that the tangible piece of the MacGuffin is located on some other planet. We could have removed Kashyyyk entirely, had Cordova tell you way back on Zepho that the key to the holocron is on Dathomir, and the story would have been more tighter and focused. But you get to Dathomir, there's a fair share of padding like being taken off course, and trying to get back to where you were supposed to be, even fighting a huge giant beast that's just there because Dark Souls and big monsters are a thing in that genre. Other complications like zombies get in the way, but you eventually and finally get to the MacGuffin, so you can unlock the last piece of MacGuffin. When you get to Bogano to get the final last piece this whole game revolved around, this is legit the first time the MacGuffin actually kinda made me care. Because after 13 hours of a few set-piece moments and some fun encounters, while going through lots and lots of backtracking and padding, and of course, convoluted storytelling, the game finally creates a sense of urgency and drama for Cal. In the final hour or so of the game, he gets a vision of the future via the MacGuffin, where he sees himself assembling the younglings to become the new Jedi. But progressively, the vision turns more nightmarish, as the Empire cracks down, abducts the children, and both them and you become new Inquisitors. So we finally see how the MacGuffin directly impacts Cal emotionally and what consequences it has for the galaxy, such as seeing the younglings in this game finally being at risk for once. Can I ask, why is all of this being set up at the very end of the game? Anyway, the last hour of the game just has you trying to retrieve the holocron from the Empire before you decide to destroy it because, well,
I don't want to be here.
I mean, the Force visions pretty much tell you that the Empire's gonna get their hands on the holocron no matter what. So, I'm sorry if all of this felt very confusing. It could just be me poorly retelling and reviewing the plot beats around the MacGuffin, but I genuinely felt like this game couldn't focus on what was important, or at least why it was important to our characters, namely Cal. But here's a thought. What if instead of reluctantly going along with the whole quest because he thinks he might as well fight back against the Empire, Cal actually wants to help Cere because he wants to give the Force-sensitive children the childhood and future he had stolen from him by the Empire? It all would have made the MacGuffin treasure hunting significantly more meaningful to him, instead of whatever the writers went with. Here's another suggestion. Why not have some dreams that show more of his past, showing the more uplifting days from before, making him miss his Padawan days? My last and final suggestion to improve the MacGuffin aspect would be to not have Cal or Cere looking for the holocron in the first place. Why not instead have the Empire already be looking for it? Which means Cal and the others need to pick up the pace and race against the clock to save the young kids before they're tortured and brainwashed into becoming the new Inquisitors. It's a classic, simple ticking time bomb storytelling with proactive villains that you see in stuff like Indiana Jones. My problem with Cal and Cere looking for the holocron from the beginning is that there's no real sense of dread and threat bearing down on the younglings. In fact, it was my friend who suggested that if Cal and Cere weren't looking for the holocron in the first place, the Empire wouldn't have come close to capturing the younglings. Second, I'm not sure what the Empire or the Inquisitors are doing for the good deal of the plot. They don't seem that proactive or want anything but to snatch Cal's victories at the very last second. I didn't know they were even looking for kids to indoctrinate until the very end. Do we even know what Trilla wants with the holocron, other than just following orders for the Empire? Does Trilla want to make Cere suffer and know that she failed to protect the younglings after Cere herself betrayed Trilla under torture? Or, better yet, does Trilla want other younglings to suffer as she did? A sort of parallel mirror of Cal 2, where he wants a healthy childhoods for the kids, whereas Trilla wants them to experience the same pain she went through. Basically, both of them had their childhood stolen from them. That, honestly, would have been far more interesting and compelling of a we're not so different you and I dynamic. With that all said and done, it's a shame that the MacGuffin in Jedi Fallen Order was so forgettable, convoluted, padded, and in the end, didn't really create any meaningful or compelling drama for our characters. Again, we know that they won't revive the Jedi Order, but how they fail to revive it, the journey, the relationships, the trauma, and internal-external conflicts could have really made us care. Obviously, I can't speak for everyone. This was my experience now that I think about it more. But I do hope it was at least interesting and makes people think about the writing and characters more. Because to me at least, it's the writing, the moments, and characters that stick with me the most in the end. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting. I'm happy to hear different opinions and perspectives, and I'd really appreciate if you would consider supporting me on Patreon to help with the channel. So till then, take care and see you next time.